Hello, welcome to this belated start to this week's quiz. Um, this is down to the previous version of the stream that I had that I'd linked, that I'd all set up. YouTube decided had a copyright violation in the background audio that was being broadcast. In fact, no, it wasn't broadcasting audio, it was broadcasting silence. I don't know what happened, but it decided there was a copyright violation, and that means that your video just gets taken down like that. So anyway, yes, we're here now. As you can tell, my my streaming software does not allow me to change questions on the fly, which is why when there are mistakes in questions, all I can do is talk about them, and why we've got this slide here with the completely different font for the correct time. So sorry about that. Anyway, in all of the kerfuffle, I have forgotten to look at the team name for the winning team. So I will announce that later, and I'll just use it as an opportunity to build suspense, and also so I can regain my composure, because as you can tell, I am somewhat annoyed with YouTube right now and struggling not to use certain words that will make this quiz not family friendly. Not that, in case anyone from YouTube is watching, this is a made for kids video, because I would have had to declare that separately, and videos that are family. I'm not going to rant about YouTube's policies, let's just get on with the quiz, shall we? Round 1, it's a warm-up round. So, as ever, just 10 questions on general topics to get us started off. So, I'll just adjust my camera slightly. Question 1. Who was King of Spain until he abdicated in 2014 in favour of his son, Felipe VI? So who was King of Spain until he abdicated in 2014 in favour of his son, Felipe VI? I don't need the regnal number here, the name is fine. I am in the background looking at the name of the winning team. I remember who were the winning team, I just don't remember what their team name was. While I'm loading that, question 2, I'm going to adjust my camera again. Who, according to a 2013 study by Visa, leaves $3.70 on average per item when she visits homes in the US? Research by YouGov Omnibus suggests she is less generous in the UK, leaving 88 pence on average. So who, according to a 2013 study by Visa, leaves $3.70 on average per item when she visits homes in the US? Research by YouGov Omnibus suggests she is less generous in the UK, leaving 88 pence on average. Okay, I have the name of the winning team, and I'll announce who were the winners at the end of round 1. So, question 3. What word can follow The Last to form a 2019 British film? The Far Away to form a series of children's books by Enid Blyton, and The Joshua to form an album by U2. What word can follow The Last to form a 2019 British film? The Far Away to form a series of children's books by Enid Blyton, and The Joshua to form an album by U2. Yes, comment in the chat here, perhaps the copyright strike was from John Cage. Funny story, actually, is that as a joke, oh gosh, I can't remember who it was now, but the creator of the Wombles as a band, what was his name? Anyway, he had wanted to put a minute's silence between 2 tracks on an album, and credited it as a joke to himself and Cage, and the estate of John Cage sued. Mike Batt was the name. So perhaps it was indeed the estate of John Cage there. But then I haven't got a copyright strike. I've only got, they just took the stream down, so I'm really confused. Question 4. Which 1994 film starring Tom Hanks is the inspiration for an international chain of shrimp restaurants? Which 1994 film starring Tom Hanks is the inspiration for an international chain of shrimp restaurants? The half rant I had at the beginning about made for kids videos, when you make a YouTube stream, you have to indicate whether your video is made for kids or not. And that means specifically children's content, so they need you to assess whether you think children would be particularly drawn to your video. My feeling about this quiz is that it's not particularly aimed at children. Some of the questions are quite hard, so it's not a made for kids video. But apparently in accordance with some US law, I have to declare whether or not it is. But nevertheless, I like to keep it family friendly so that if any kids were around when the video was being streamed, they wouldn't hear swearing. I really wanted to at the beginning though. Question 5. In which historic county of Scotland would you find the home of golf, the East Neuk, and one end of the Forth Bridge? In which historic county of Scotland would you find the home of golf, the East Neuk, and one end of the Forth Bridge? Question 6. In the Harry Potter series, what denomination of coinage is neither the largest nor the smallest in value? In the Harry Potter series, what denomination of coinage is neither the largest nor the smallest in value? Question 7. The Orst Ferry crossed which river until service was ended permanently in 1966? It was visited by Bob Dylan only months before it closed. The Orst Ferry crossed which river until service was ended permanently in 1966? It was visited by Bob Dylan only months before it closed. And the photo of Bob Dylan appears on a biography of him called No Direction Home, if you want to cheat and Google that. There are no prizes as ever, so feel free. If you win, you will know in your heart that your victory was hollow. Question 8. What word for a portion of the heart can also refer to a large open space within a building? What word for a portion of the heart can also refer to a large open space within a building? My drink this week is tea. I was meant to be calming. I sort of downed it during the early technical issues fluster at the start. Question 9. What word in Standard German, and I apologise for my pronunciation because it will be wrong, means the same as niet in Russian, nor in Scots, and ne in Esperanto? What word in Standard German means the same as niet in Russian, nor in Scots, and ne in Esperanto? Esperanto is one of the few constructed languages that has a Wikipedia in it. I think quite an active community. They shut down the Klingon one fairly early, but it didn't stop a Klingon letter being part of Wikipedia's logo for many years until they noticed the anomaly and shut it and changed it. There is still an active Klingon Wikipedia equivalent, but not part of the main project, and run on, I think, on Wikia, but I might be wrong. Really should check my facts before I start on these ramblings. Question 10. The actor born as David MacDonald in 1971 changed his surname when joining the Actors Union Equity, taking his inspiration from a copy of Smash Hits magazine. What name did he pick? The actor born as David MacDonald in 1971 changed his surname when joining the Actors Union Equity, taking his inspiration from a copy of Smash Hits magazine. What name did he pick? You might not know this, but the background to this question, I suppose, is that the Actors Union Equity requires all of its members to have, I think all of its living members, to have a unique name. So that it's because as an actor, your name is somehow your brand. So this has meant several actors, including this one, have had to change their titles upon joining. Change their names rather upon joining, so that they don't get confused with somebody who got there first and had that name. Okay, so before we go into round 2, I'll put the slide up for round 2. It's going to be a Guess the Sport round, but it's time for me to announce belatedly the winner of quiz number 2. And that was... drumroll, please. Rude Monster Breakout. With a score of, I think it was 20... I've got the score separately, of course. A score of 28 out of 40. Very well done. So in this week's quiz, round 2 is a Guess the Sport round. Now, I'm not a big sport fan, as anyone who knows me can attest. But so I made this round as one that hopefully you can at least have a guess at if you don't know anything about sport. I want to know which Olympic sport all of these terms come from. And by Olympic sports, I'm referring to the list of sports that were used in Rio 2016 or in Pyeongchang 2018, so the two most recent Olympic Summer and Winter Games. If a sport's divided into disciplines, so wrestling, for instance, there's freestyle wrestling and there's Greco-Roman wrestling, I am looking for the discipline, not the sport, and there's a reason for that. Most of those sports aren't really what we normally think of as sports. Most of those, it should be hopefully fairly obvious what I mean. I'm asked why I'm doing this to you if I'm not a sport fan. Some of my viewers might be. I have a duty to represent all possible players of this quiz. So, question 1. Stone, house, hogline. Stone, house, hogline. So, it's 3 terms from a sport, and I want you to tell me which one. Question 2. Pommel horse, giants, uneven bars. This is one where I will give you the hint. Again, I'm looking for a discipline, not the general sport. This is one of those that comes under a wider sport. Question 3. Love, let, ace. Love, let, ace. Question that really gives away that I'm actually secretly from the north. Is the way I say love. Question 4. Toe picks. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce this word, but Salchow or Salchow and camel spin. Toe picks, Salcho or Salchoff, and camel spin. If we have any practitioners of this sport in the chat, please let me know how to pronounce that word. I did try and look, and I didn't try very hard, admittedly, but I did look and didn't find the right pronunciation there. Moving on. Question 5. Goofy, Pepper, and the W. Goofy, Pepper, and the W. I'm going a bit faster in this round. I feel like it's kind of one where you might know it or you don't. If I'm going too fast, tell me. I'll now go a little bit slower for 30 seconds or so that my speech catches up with this, so the stream catches up and you can actually have a chance to say it. Question 6. Puck, icing, butterfly. Puck, icing, butterfly. Another northern word there, puck. I realise I'm emphasising it more when I say it in a consciously northern way. Question 7. Butterfly, individual medley, lane. Butterfly, individual medley, lane. So I don't actually know if this applies to all the sports we've said. I may have missed some, but certainly this is one where what the IOC considers the sport is not the answer you'd think, and I'm looking for the discipline. So if you think you know the answer, you're right. It's hard to explain more than that without giving away the answer, but yeah. Eagle, iron, R and A. Eagle, iron, R and A. How about question 9 then? Throw off, D zone, dribble. Throw off, D zone, dribble. A reminder that these are all Olympic sports as well. So if it's a sport that's not in the Olympics, that uses these terms, I do not want it as the answer. Also, if it's a sport that's only going to be in the Olympics from hopefully next year, but from the Tokyo Olympics, then that also is not an answer. And question 10, try scrum conversion. Try scrum conversion. And that is the end of the sport round, which I'm sure some of you will be very pleased about. Right, how about we go on to round 3 then, which is an odd one out round. So, right, okay. So a problem I have sometimes with odd one out rounds is that technically you can say that any of them is the odd one out, because you could say something along the lines of, if I gave you examples of, I don't know, if I gave you the cities of Aberdeen, Leeds, Bristol and Norwich, the odd one out I'd be looking for is Aberdeen because it's in Scotland and the others are in England. But of course, Norwich is the odd one out because it begins with N and the others don't begin with N. Hopefully there's a clear answer to all of these, but I will, as I put on here, if you come up with something that I judge a good enough answer that's not the one I had, I'll give you the point. But that's why I need to know which is the odd one out, and I also need to know why. Well, that and the fact that otherwise it would be multiple choice, but I need to know why it's the odd one out. So it's kind of like a connections round, but one thing doesn't fit. To also try and guard against the problem I just mentioned, all of the others will have some sort of positive connection between them. So it's not just that they don't have some feature, they will have some feature in common, and the fourth item will not have that feature. Hopefully this is then clear. Yeah, I would think about this more if this were a quiz with any sort of prize, or on television or something like that. But it's a fun YouTube quiz because we're all stuck in our homes. So yeah, make of it what you will. Points may be awarded slightly arbitrarily in this one, but I'll try and be as fair as I can. So question 1, Kramer versus Kramer, La La Land, Gone with the Wind, The Artist. So as an example of what I mean, you could say here, La La Land is the odd one out because it's a musical and the others aren't musicals, but that's really not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something as a positive connection between the others that does not apply to the odd one out. Give you a second to think about that one. Question 2. Portugal, Eswatini, so that's the country formerly known as Swaziland, the Netherlands and Papua New Guinea. Portugal, Eswatini, the Netherlands and Papua New Guinea. Eswatini changed its name a couple of years ago. That is the name of Eswatini in Eswatini. Swaziland, I think, was a colonial era name, and for understandable reasons they decided to get rid of that. More unusual one is Côte d'Ivoire, which has officially decided that its name in any language is Côte d'Ivoire. It is the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, which in English is still commonly referred to as the Ivory Coast. But then there's Czechia, which, again, in that case, closer matches it's not called the Czech Republic in Czech. It's called something analogous to Czechia. But anyway, the question here is Portugal, Eswatini, the Netherlands, Papua New Guinea, which is the odd one out. Question 3. Daltrey, Moon, Richards, Townsend. Daltrey, Moon, Richards, Townsend. Daltrey Moon sounds like something out of a Lewis Carroll poem. The daltrey moon shone down. If you are just joining us, I don't know if that applies to anyone here, but if you are just joining us, or if you did join us late, remember the quiz. YouTube's somewhat arbitrary policies aside, this quiz should stay up on YouTube after it's done. So hopefully you'll be able to go back and look at the questions you missed. Moving on, question 4. Dreamcast, GameCube, Mega Drive, Saturn. And there's a stray question mark at the end there. Not question mark, comma. It's been a long day. Dreamcast, GameCube, Mega Drive, Saturn. As ever, round 3 is possibly the hardest round in the quiz, so if you find this one a bit tricky, stick with us. Round 4 should be a little bit easier, hopefully. Question 5. Evita, Cats, Starlight Express, Chess. Evita, Cats, Starlight Express, Chess. So again, the answer I'm looking for is not along the lines of Evita is the only one that doesn't end in an S. There's something more, perhaps more fundamental. Question 6. Miss Havisham, Abel Magwitch, Philip Pirrip, and Esther Summerson. Miss Havisham, Abel Magwitch, Philip Pirrip, and Esther Summerson. Pretty sure I would not have known the answer to this question had I not written it. As ever with these quizzes, the fun thing about writing them is that, yeah, you get to know all the answers. Question 7. Battle of Hastings, Battle of Passchendaele, Battle of Trafalgar, Battle of Waterloo. I'm very aware that the pronunciation I'm using for the second of those is not how it's pronounced in the country. I don't know how it is, and I will butcher it, so I'm going with the English pronunciation. Apologies if you are from Passchendaele or nearby. So Battle of Hastings, Battle of Passchendaele, Battle of Trafalgar, Battle of Waterloo. Question 8. Lincoln Cathedral, the Empire State Building, the Petronas Towers, and the Dom Tower in Utrecht. So to be clear here, the Petronas Towers are a single entity that are twin towers next to each other with some bridges between them. So Lincoln Cathedral, the Empire State Building, Petronas Towers, and the Dom Tower in Utrecht. Excuse me. Really should save my yawns until I've got a full screen slide, shouldn't I? Question 9. Leona Lewis, Joe McElderry, Geraldine McQueen, Shane Ward. Leona Lewis, Joe McElderry, Geraldine McQueen, Shane Ward. Should go with the staring into the middle distance thing again. I feel like that worked well last week. Yeah, there's only so long I can keep that up. Right, question 10. Lime Street, Piccadilly, Victoria, Oxford Road. Lime Street, Piccadilly, Victoria, Oxford Road. And another stray comma there. Dear me. I swear I said last week I'd actually proofread these. I didn't. Shame on me. Okay, so that's the end of the hardest round in the quiz, which was round 3, the odd one out round. So let's move on to round 4, which is our theme round as ever, and this week the theme is George. So the reason I picked this, it was St George's Day 4 days ago. That's literally it, that's the entire reason I picked this. Well, that and the fact that I couldn't think of anything else. If you do have any ideas for theme rounds, do drop me a line. My email address is on my website, which is www.alexquiz.fun. I mean, if you also put it in the answer submission box, I'll still see it. But yeah, please let me know if you have any ideas for themes for future quizzes. I'd be really interested to hear them. So let's get us going then with question 1 on the theme of Georges. So as well as England, Georgia, and various other places in Europe, St. George is the patron saint of which African country? As well as England, Georgia, and various other places in Europe, St. George is the patron saint of which African country? That is, of course, the Georgia. That's the former Soviet Republic and not the Georgia in the United States. Question 2. The play The Madness of George III and the screenplay for its similarly named film adaptation were both written by which playwright? The play The Madness of George III and the screenplay for its similarly named film adaptation were both written by which playwright? So the story goes, and it's sort of, I think it's sort of half true from what I've read. So the film was called The Madness of King George instead of The Madness of George III, and the story goes that American audiences, there was concern that American audiences would see The Madness of George III and wonder if they'd missed The Madness of George I and The Madness of George II. Apparently there was some concern about that, but mainly it was that they wanted to get the word king into the title somehow. Question 3. Talking of America, for what does the W stand in the name of George W. Bush? For what does the W stand in the name of George W. Bush? His father, of course, George H.W. Bush, which he wasn't called until there was a W that needed clarifying with. It didn't make sense. You know what I meant. Question 4. Which George, who lost to Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, later became known for his eponymous grill? Which George, who lost to Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, later became known for his eponymous grill? The Rumble in the Jungle was in 1974, I think, in Kinshasa, in what's now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, previously Zaire. The George in question had won at the Olympics, I think, and I think his fight with Muhammad Ali was his first professional loss. Question 5 then. Which George was famous for playing the ukulele, recording songs like Leaning on a Lamppost and With My Little Stick of Blackpool Rock? Which George was famous for playing the ukulele, recording songs like Leaning on a Lamppost and With My Little Stick of Blackpool Rock? The second of those was at one point banned by the BBC, for reasons that I will let you look into if you wish. Well, there's apparently a dispute about whether it was banned by the BBC, but the BBC says it was banned by the BBC, so it was on mentioned on a programme called, I believe, Listen to the Band, on BBC 4 once. Excellent programme. Don't know if it's on the iPlayer. I'll have a look. Question 6. Which country has its capital at Georgetown? So there's quite a few Georgetowns in the world, but there's only one country that has a capital called Georgetown. So which country has its capital at Georgetown? Named after one of the Georges we've already had in this quiz, George III. It's a shame. The programme I mentioned is not currently on BBC iPlayer. But yes, it's called Britain's Most Dangerous Songs. Listen to the band. There is an article still about them, though. And With My Little Stick of Blackpool Rock is one of the examples given on the page. Question 7. Many commercial planes have George in the cabin to assist the pilot. What is George? Many commercial planes have George in the cabin to assist the pilot. What is George? Question asked by many an existential George over the years. What is George? Question 8. Which British supermarket sells clothing under the George brand? It's named after their first chief designer, George Davies, who founded Next. Which British supermarket sells clothing under the George brand? It's named after their first chief designer, George Davies, who founded Next. Question 9. George is the younger brother of which cartoon animal? George's favourite toy is a dinosaur called Mr. Dinosaur, whereas his older sister has a teddy bear called Teddy. George is the younger brother of which cartoon animal? George's favourite toy is a dinosaur called Mr. Dinosaur, whereas his older sister has a teddy bear called Teddy. It's perhaps the only question in the quiz, despite what I said earlier about, well, the video is not made for kids, but kids are possibly more likely to know this one. Alternatively, parents, also quite likely to know this one. And question 10. The Swedish form of George is Georg. Which member of ABBA recorded vocals for a version of Morning Has Broken on an album by Swedish guitarist Georg Wedenius? The Swedish form of George is Georg. Which member of ABBA recorded vocals for a version of Morning Has Broken on an album by Swedish guitarist Georg Wedenius? That was the final question in this 40-question quiz. So, as ever, I need to give you the instructions. If you've watched before, you'll know what to do, but you need to go if you want to submit your answers, and you can do this at any point up to midnight tomorrow. So if you're watching afterwards, feel free to also submit your answers, as long as it's before midnight tomorrow, at the end of tomorrow. Go to www.alexquiz.fun/submit. There's a box there, just type your answers in, copy them, paste them, whatever. And I will announce the winner at the beginning, hopefully this time, of the next quiz. Hopefully YouTube won't mess me around next time. So that's it for quiz number 3. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties at the start. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have, either live or later, I really appreciate it, especially as it's been a lot harder to find the quiz this week. If you saw any links that I maybe sent out, they will have just stopped working. So thank you very much for joining me. If you enjoyed this, there's a like button underneath. Please do click that. Also, please click subscribe and click the little bell, because otherwise you won't get notifications of when there are more quizzes, which is quite possibly useful when YouTube shuts down the entire stream and I have to create a new one. So, yeah, once again, thank you for joining me. Please submit your answers if you've got them by midnight at the end of tomorrow, and I will announce the winner at the beginning of the next quiz. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and see you later.